Hello, I'm Sharon Ross with the Capital City Arts Initiative. We're a visual arts organization based here in Carson City. CCAI has been presenting exhibitions in the Courthouse Gallery since 2004. Today, we're delighted to host a discussion with artist LB Buchan in the gallery with their Callosum exhibition. You can read the companion essay by Chris Lanier online or find a copy in the gallery. He has joined us from Vancouver, Washington, and we're delighted to have them here in the gallery. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here in Carson City. This is one of the pieces in my exhibition titled Callosum. The entire show is based on soft tissues and human anatomy, but then all the pieces have other inspiration involved in them, whether it be botanical or sea life or skeleton structures. This is a piece based on your intestines, the human intestines, and then it obviously has sort of a botanical flair here at the top. It's a little bit of a weird piece. If you scan around it, you can see that there's layers here, and it's actually hollowed in these things. And you know, it's titled Canal because the idea is that things would be traveling through here.
LB, so this to me looks very much like sea kelp, and I'm not sure about the shapes at the top. Can you tell me more?
Yeah, so as far as the human anatomy inspiration goes, the top is like inspired from the metacarpals, and then these stems that are carrying down would be like tendons, and then these kelp forms are referencing muscles in the forearm. And my work is obviously very physical, and I do a lot of work with my hands, and so these are things I think about a lot. And I was intentionally trying to reference kelp. I wanted it to feel like there was sort of a rippling effect happening through these leaves here. And they didn't get really thin and delicate the way kelp does, because again, they're also referencing muscles, and also just for the strength of the piece, I didn't want it to get too delicate since all of these are sort of independently suspended in air.
So how do you make these ruffles in the wood? They are so delicate, they're so beautiful, and the wood it's wood, it's not fragile.
Yeah. Yeah, that's been a big challenge in this body of work. So much of what I've done before has been like skeletal based, and so I'm making like hard forms like bones using a hard material like wood. And in this body of work, I was really trying to emulate soft tissues and the softness of our bodies and our flesh. So it was pretty challenging, and I don't know what the answer is exactly, other than just practice and just like a lot of visual imagery that I'm referencing.
LB, this piece transverse again has a very delicate ruffle type edge with a very strong form. So can you talk more about this one?
Yeah, so transverse, the title refers to a plane in the body. So it would be a plane across your body this way. And it's a piece that's based on the diaphragm. So this sort of cape form is based on the diaphragm in the human body, and then this would be the liver. I've been looking at organs a lot, and so this was one of the earlier pieces I did in this body of work. And these, these ruffled edges that I'm doing in these pieces, one of the things I'm really trying to do with wood is do things that people don't expect to see wood doing. We usually interact with wood in an architectural sense or with furniture, and so it's a lot of like flat surfaces and right angles and straight edges, and so I'm really trying to push the material to do things you don't expect to see.
So do you start with a solid block of wood? How do you do this?
Yeah, every piece is a little bit different, but I never start with a solid block. I buy rough lumber that I'm milling, so they're just rough boards. And then I'm doing basically a map of every piece before I start, where I'm doing a front view drawing and a side view drawing. And then I use those as maps to decide how to glue up the piece. So it ends up being a block shape, but kind of in an awkward shape. And then a lot of them are complex enough that I'm carving them in two different pieces or multiple pieces and then putting them together and finishing. And this is a good example of that. I glued up and carved the cape diaphragm part separate from this main body of the piece. And then I put them together, and then I laminated more wood to make this collar and then finished carving it. So it's kind of a complex process.
LB, you sent us this artist statement. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so this body of work really is about the way we carry stress in our body. So I was thinking about a lot of the ways mental things affect us physically. And then very early on in this body of work, COVID started. And so it gave this whole new sort of bent to these ideas I was exploring, because suddenly, we became afraid of each other and each other's bodies and even our own bodies in this way that was really interesting. And so rather than talking about it sort of in a normal paragraph format, I was interested in just exploring words, and I organized them in this way to, again, emulate lungs. Breath and breathing was a big part of the ideas I was exploring in this show. And then callosum comes from Corpus Callosum, which is the large nerve tract connecting our right and left hemispheres of our brain. And so, this body of work is about like mental and physical very much, and the connection between the two. And I thought, this has been such a difficult, challenging year for so many people in so many different ways. And I thought this was a better way to talk about the body of work than just a typical, explanation.
Well, the reference to breathing in COVID, it couldn't be more appropriate.
Yeah.
So do you ever go larger than the cherry piece over there.
Yeah, I do. I've worked as large as 10 feet before. I've done a couple suspended pieces that are 10 feet long. And I work as small as, maybe like 12 by 12, but pretty rarely. An average size piece is definitely in the 4-foot range, 3 to 5 feet.
And so what's next on your itinerary?
So I am working on a very large installation for somewhere in Portland. It's still a little bit secret, so if you follow me at Laura Buchan Sculpture on Instagram, you'll find out about that once I'm ready to disclose it. But I'm doing an installation taking up about 40 feet of space, and there will be one large 10-foot suspended piece, and then I'm still sort of working on and deciding what the other half of it's going to be. So,
Well, we can't wait.
thank you. Me too.
Good. LB, let's go look at Cornelius Cirrus, and I'm stumbling over the title.
That's
Let's
okay.
Go look.
So this piece is titled Cornelius Cirrus, and it's based on a bovine skull combined with the female reproductive system. For years, every time I saw a diagram of the female reproductive system, it always reminded me of like a bullhead. And so it was something I always wanted to do. And the title is actually a made-up word. It's a combination of hornu, which in Latin means horn, and then in anatomy, it's a horn-shaped projection, or it's either of the two lateral cavities of the uterus into which the fallopian tubes pass. And then Cincerus comes from the scientific name for the African Cape buffalo, and it's called Cincerus caffer. And that was the, it doesn't, this isn't meant to emulate that exactly, but that is one of the most powerful and dangerous buffalo species. And they, the females actually grow horns. So it was one of the reasons I chose it. So sagittal, again, is referring to a different plane in the body, and it would be like the center plane. So the inspiration behind this piece is, again, it's an intestinal piece, and if you were to look at an anatomical diagram of our bodies split down the middle and a view this way of our torso, these things, if this was oriented vertically like this, these are like the ends of your intestines that you're seeing, and then the larger ones are like stomach and other things. But this is actually fairly accurate to what it actually looks like in our bodies, and it's called the mesentery. And so these tissues here are, they connect our intestines to our abdominal wall and hold everything in place. So.
Well, talking about the flora and fauna combination, to me it looks like a leaf. So that's amazing that you're combining the two things so successfully.
Yeah, some people see a botanical thing in it. Some people see sort of a pattern like what you would see in an insect wing or a butterfly or something like that. So yeah.
On sagittal is a great deal more laminating. Could you discuss the process?
Yeah, so this is a much different laminating process. This piece is made entirely from 16th inch veneer, and so essentially that's a very, very thin board, and it's so thin that it's actually flexible. So you can see these real thin lines in the piece are carrying all the way through. And so what I did was I cut forms of wood that were like these interior negative shapes, and then I bent the veneer around it. So it was long, skinny strips that I rolled glue on and then bent it around and clamped around these forms. And so I had to sort of gradually build it up and clamp it to itself so it all fit together here. It was pretty complex.
So LB, can you talk about your titles? They're seem in a way secretive, but I want more.
Yeah, that's actually a little bit intentional. I don't like to necessarily tell people exactly what the original inspiration was because I really like people to see what they see without being instructed. And so I often use scientific terms for my titles of whatever maybe one of the original sources of inspiration was, but really you can see that there's a lot of different things kind of imbued into the work. This piece is a botanical pod piece, but it's also kind of reminiscent of lungs as well. And again, it's very hollow in here. This piece probably only weighs like 5 pounds, to give you an idea, difference from that piece. And so casein, it just references sort of, pods are encasing seeds. So that's the reference there. And some of the titles are actually made up words. So it totally depends. It's just my own weird thing. So this is an example of the drawings I do in my planning process. I included a couple in the exhibition. I think it's really helpful for people to see sort of the way I do this. So this is a drawing of one of the sculptures in the exhibition, front view and side view. Typically I do these like full scale on butcher paper and they get all beat up in the shop, but I use them as maps for my glue ups. So what I would do is mill up my lumber and measure the width of my boards and then like draw those lines on the drawing and then build that up. And this piece again was done in 2 different parts where I laminated this half of these lung forms and this half separately, partially carved them and then glued them together. And if you come this way, you can see the actual piece. So this is called Tributaries. And it is inspired by lungs, but you'll see it has these formations growing off of it, and those are meant to emulate barnacles. But they're also, in place of where the veins and different things would be coming off the lungs and attaching to the heart. So,
How heavy is that piece?
This one is one of the heavier ones in the show, even though these are quite hollow in here. But maple is a more dense wood, so it is heavier. This piece is close to 20 pounds. Most of them are much, much lighter than that.
So do you want to talk about your choice of maple? One of the pieces is cherry.
Yeah. Maple is just one of my favorite woods to use. The materials I use the most are maple, cherry, and alder. And I have found recently that I really enjoy sort of doing an entire body of work in one species. It feels a little bit more cohesive to me. And then I included the cherry piece because it fit really well with the body of work. And also it's kind of a statement piece, and it's nice that it's a different medium.
Well, we're glad you brought them all.
Thank you.
LB, thank you so much for bringing all this work to Carson City and CCAI. We're thrilled with this exhibition. And we want to thank our funders, the Nominee Foundation, the Nevada Arts Council, Nevada Humanities, our members who provide support for the exhibition series, and the organization. You'll find additional online talks on our YouTube channel and information on our website, including the essays. Our website is ccainb.org, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.